Gavin made the girl blush again. The girl put on her helmet, a little flustered. Her cheeks were bright red like the apples in the display window. If I had been able to move, I would have been shaking my head. Gavin was always very straightforward. Sometimes he would unknowingly say things that would embarrass people, and occasionally, upon realizing this, he would blush in embarrassment. But more often he would ask,
"What's wrong?"
He helped the girl adjust her helmet and lifted the windshield up a little.
"Your face is a little flushed. Feeling stuffy?"
The girl immediately shook her head, her fine eyelashes trembling as Gavin suddenly leaned in close. She seemed to blush even more. Could it be? Gavin reached out and touched the girl's cheek with his fingertips. My heart leapt. This is it! You've been apart for so long. Don't you miss each other? Quick! Lift the helmet and kiss her! I suddenly thought of the old ladies at City Park, chatting about how youngsters nowadays could really drag out relationships, even taking 40 episodes to get married in TV dramas. If I could talk, I would have told them that 40 episodes isn't that bad, and that reality may be a tad worse than that. But at the moment, it seemed that things were turning around. Just as I was feeling relieved, the blushing girl turned away before Gavin could get closer and pointed at me.
I'm all right. Let's go.
I knew it. These two. My heart sighed hopelessly. But as a mere motorcycle, what could I do? I could only give them a lift. I don't know why a motorcycle has a consciousness of its own. I only remember that the first scene in my memory was a dirty face that leaned in very close to me. He was a pretty handsome man, although at the time I had no concept of the word handsome. I just thought that despite this person's dirty cheeks, his eyes were very bright, his short hair was clean, and the faint light reflected by his earring was just right. The man stepped back and wiped the sweat off his forehead with his gloved hand. He was holding tools and had a few bottles and cans at his feet. Is he? No way! He tilted his head, swapped tools, and approached me again. My fears were confirmed. I felt my whole body suddenly become an ice house. He's modifying me! I looked at the bottles and cans on the ground, trying to identify their colors. White, blue, orange, and neon? All on me? No, not cool at all. For the remainder of the time, I was completely depressed and didn't have the heart to look at the man. Regardless of whether or not this person was good looking, if he really modified me into an ugly monster, he would be my enemy. As I was angrily contemplating this, the man seemed to have finally finished his work. He took a deep breath and said softly to himself,
"Pretty much done."
He turned around and left the garage, leaving me alone with my sadness. After a while, he came back. He had changed out of his dirty clothes and had a smile on his freshly cleaned face. I was busy drowning in grief, so I wasn't paying attention when he suddenly sat on me and started up the motor. It was my first run since receiving consciousness. The city lights receded around me, like a shiny river and glittering silk. The dazzling view made me forget my troubles. I looked around at the pedestrians strolling along the roadside, the billboards in the distance, and the interesting things behind the display windows. Then I saw myself in the reflection of the glass. Pure black body, with modified exhaust and shock absorber. I looked so cool! That excitement became my motivation, and I felt that my speed had unconsciously become faster. We sped ahead, gradually moving away from the hustle and bustle of the city, and finally came to a mountaintop overlooking the city lights. The man stopped, took off his helmet, and patted me. He smiled with satisfaction, sparkling starlight in his eyes.
I'll call you Sparky then.
I, Sparky, calmly accepted the fact that I was modified, and after learning that my adoptive father was called Gavin, I decided to affectionately call him Gavi. Gavi and Sparky sounded like names of an excellent owner and his trusty motorcycle. Moreover, Gavin had superpowers. No, it's called Evil. Anyway, we were invincible together. I still remember the first time I went out on one of his investigations. Before that, I had never thought that I could do something as incredible as tracking down suspects. It was a sweltering hot summer afternoon. Cicadas were chirping. Gavin and I had finally managed to find shade. We waited there for about 3 hours, and Gavin's eyes were fixed on the office building not far away. In the evening, a man came out. Although he was dressed normally, I couldn't help looking him over a few more times. There was something about him. The man glanced around for a long time before getting into a black car. Gavin immediately got on me and took off after them. We trailed them across 2 streets in silence. At the 3rd intersection, they seemed to realize that someone was following them and suddenly sped up. Seeing the increasing distance between us, I started to feel nervous. After all, it was a car, and if they continued to speed up, we would definitely lose them at the next corner. What now? As I was in deep thought, a strange sensation swept over me. The wind around me seemed to make way automatically. The resistance suddenly lowered, and the wind seemed to gather behind me, pushing me forward. Gavin leaned down and rotated the throttle. The surrounding cars were left behind in a flash. I sped freely through the traffic, enjoying the evening wind on my face. I felt like I had wings, and I could almost fly if I went any faster. It took me a while to understand why I was able to speed so fast that day. It was largely due to Gavin's ability to control the wind. Although the fantasy of my imagined talent was ruined, the fact that Gavin had superpowers, that was also pretty nice. 0 resistance plus driving force? It's a dream come true experience for so many motorcycles. It's awesome to have met Gavin. In addition to going out on his investigations, Gavin also occasionally took me out for a ride. I loved the feeling of racing with him, especially on the empty roads at night, where I could hit my fastest speed and feel the invigorating wind on my face. Just like our first run together, under the vast starry sky, only constant acceleration could break through the darkness. This is probably the definition of bromance. Speaking of bromance, occasionally I would think about another kind, like between lovers, especially when I saw those bikes carrying young couples at the gates of Loveland High School. I once thought about this problem quite seriously all night, and finally came to the conclusion that if Gavin asked me to take a girl for a ride one day, I would be willing to slow down for the sake of his happiness. After all, ladies' cars drive very slowly. Maybe girls prefer that speed? In fact, it was just a random thought at the time, and I didn't expect this day to come so soon. It was a sunny afternoon, and I was waiting for Gavin at the gate of the Loveland City Police Department. I felt that there was something wrong with him that day. Nothing special had happened, but Gavin seemed very happy and was in a hurry. It took him only half the usual time to get to the police department. I thought of several possibilities, but unfortunately none of them were right. I was shocked when Gavin showed up at the gate with the girl. She called him Gavin from school. It turned out that they had known each other before. I couldn't help remembering what I saw at the gates of Loveland High School. How did I never know of the existence of this girl before? Did they ride bikes like those high school lovers? Oh my God, I'm not his first vehicle. My thoughts drifted further and further away until the girl got on me and grabbed the edge of the back seat. Gavin rotated the throttle and we rode off. We weren't going fast, but the girl was still a bit blinded. Gavin talked to her about the case situation, but his voice got lost in the wind.
Gavin, it's too windy. I can't hear you clearly.
Before she could finish, Gavin turned around and repeated it again. However, the girl was frightened and quickly put her hand on his shoulder.
Gavin, look ahead, please.
He laughed softly, and they didn't talk anymore. I was somehow in a better mood and couldn't help but speed up. After that, I often saw the girl. After-work pickups on weekdays and dates on weekends. The open space below where she lived felt like my second garage. At first, I was displeased with this. After all, since Gavin and the girl reconnected, he hadn't taken me out racing in a long time. But gradually, I got used to it. Although there were fewer chances to enjoy our bromance, it was also great to bring the girl to the secret base of Gavin and me and to watch the bright starry sky. The more time we spent with each other, the more I thought the girl was a wonderful person. She loved to laugh and blushed a lot, but sometimes she would bravely express herself. If we hadn't seen each other for a few days, she would come up and pat me on the head, asking, "How are you, Sparky?" Oftentimes, I was sad that I couldn't speak or move. Otherwise, I would have definitely given her a big smile and told her that I was fine. I thought of a billboard I saw on the side of the road. A girl in a wedding dress was clinging tightly to a boy on a motorcycle, her wedding dress flying in the wind. And under the dazzling stars, they rode off in the distance and on into eternity. Yes, I hope I can carry them like that in the future. I fantasized endlessly. Suddenly, I felt something heavy on me. A puppy unexpectedly climbed onto the seat, found a comfortable position, and then closed his eyes and began to snore. "Hey, I carry only Gavin and the girl. Get off!" I cried out desperately in my heart, but the puppy couldn't hear me. He even yawned, then moved his paws and kept sleeping. Just when I was in despair, the girl nearby seemed to have heard me. She looked back and saw the little dog. She was stunned for a moment, then laughed and pulled on Gavin's sleeve to come take a look. Seeing Gavin turn around, I cried out in my heart again, "Come help me chase this dog away!" Gavin froze slightly, and then walked toward me with the girl. It seemed that we were in sync. Even though I couldn't speak, he knew what I was thinking. I was quite satisfied with Gavin's reaction, but they stopped after only a few steps. The girl took out her phone and took a picture of the cozy puppy, along with my shocked face. And Gavin, don't think I didn't see you laughing. A light breeze suddenly lifted the girl's hat. She shouted and quickly reached out to catch it, but Gavin had already caught the hat and placed it back on her head. The girl was blushing in the sunlight. She looked up, and seeing her smiling eyes, Gavin smiled as well. Fine, so be it. I decided to close my eyes and take a nap, just like the little guy on my back. After all, it's their private romantic moment, right?